I would like to focus on getting us really looking at this issue, the need for a vision that we can invest in, to look at the size of what we have to do together. That's a large part of my work, is trying to get men to realize the size of the male soul. You know that old thing about without a vision the people perish. And in the frontispiece to this King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, there's a quote from Blake. And so, Rick, will you stand up and read that quote?
Four mighty ones are in every man, a perfect unity cannot exist but from the universal brotherhood of Eden, the universal man, to whom be glory evermore. Amen.
Anybody that starts today starts talking about regeneration and hope and some vision that earth might be fair is considered utopian. You know, that means no place. Utopian. I've become convinced that we have to remember that without some articulation of what the vision is that we're trying to work on together, what is it that we're trying to build together? That's king energy. If you say to somebody, what is it that you are building? If they cannot tell you, they have not done that part of their work. And so I want to point out this struggle for selfhood and how this is related to the attempt to build a new, regenerated world. Because when we're talking about reconciliation, we're talking about healing this split, we're really talking about that regenerative healing move toward wholeness, which is at the heart of all the myths. It's what creation myths are about. Peoples of the world, all over the world, throughout all history, have had this longing for renovatio, for regeneration, for the death of the old, partial, split, alienated world, and the emergence of a new golden world where it's a world of justice and peace. Now, there was a long time when your major thinkers would tell you that that's all utopian, and anybody that tries to get you into a vision of something that might work is a hopeless idealist, blah, 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 blah. It's not a mythic point of view. See, if you have any sense of the human mythic imagination, which is what we are, you know, if you want to describe what our species is, we are the animal that mythologizes. That's what we are. And when we forget to mythologize, and when we get to where we can't participate in the mythic imagination, then we are sick. We're ill. See, I recently came out in an essay just making a flat-out statement. You cannot be sane if you are not participating in myth. If you're into the mythologizing animal, you know that we humans try to create the center. We try to find the true center from which the world can be brought into being. Cosmos will come, chaos will recede, and justice will reign. And what I've done in my recent series of lectures on mythology, psychology and mythology, is to talk about how this is universally human. Campbell was getting at this kind of stuff, and Mircea Eliade was getting at this kind of stuff, trying to get us oriented here to what our challenge is. It is no less than getting back to that task of envisioning the world that we want to be citizens of. It's really interesting to do a remythologizing of Christian tradition. Back in the 60s, the big rage was demythologizing Christianity, taking all the myth out of it, so we can all be nihilistic existentialists, you know, who don't believe in shit, except that which we drag out of our ass. But it's wonderful to play from the human mythic imagination, to look at that early church as one expression of this human mythic paradigm. These people felt that the true king had come. Read that the Lord of the Four Quarters. And they felt that the royal brotherhood and sisterhood had been established at Advent. There never has been a single human being in indigenous times, tribal times, that ever started out to create a tribe. They were creating humanity and the world. And so in every myth, at the golden heart of the myth, coming out of the spiritual core of the people, is the human beings and the redeemed world. So what we got to get is what Christianity did. It took that primal vision and turned it into a tribe. So you can be in and out of it, see. And every tribe, once it realizes that there are others, does the same thing. So you get this tribal fratricide once this golden egg conflicts with this golden egg. And what we've got to do is to realize that we have just turned the corner into a new situation. We're living in a fresh new time in history if we will take advantage of it. And Joseph Campbell got it in his little book, The Inner Reaches of Outer Space. He pointed out that now, finally, being able to look at this little home planet from space, there will be, for the first time, a way of understanding that reality, which all of tribal revelations have been straining to bring into consciousness. There has been coming, and the witness of the indigenous peoples is that we cannot go back to tribal life alone. We need to steward our tribes, need to steward the wisdom. Everyone needs to be stewarding the wisdom of at least two tribes, in my view. Your own and one other at least. But the challenge is to realize that it's sort of like in that old Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom. You remember that place where he's going down, and he's going down, and he's going down, and finally he gets to that place where he gets this one place, and then this big door goes kunk behind him. He realizes that he cannot go back, that he's either going to die there or he's going to go down and through. And that is the situation we're in now. We have each come down the tunnel of our tribal past, and we've now reached the point where the doors have closed behind us, and we're not going to be able to go back out the way we came. And we have only one way to go, and a lot, as Harrison Ford said, a lot of snakes. And we got to go down and through into this new thing, which Campbell is pointing out is now a possibility in a way that it has never, ever been before in history. That's not, I'm not saying it's a reality, it's not a done deal, but it has become possible in a way that has never been true before in history. So the thing I want to get us clear about is this longing for a vision, this longing for the earth community. This isn't some stupid, utopian, ridiculous, naive male thing like a lot of the Western intellectual tradition would have you believe, including Reinhold Niebuhr, who's, for those of you that don't know about Reinhold Niebuhr, very influential philosopher, theologian of modern thought. And his belief was that it was impossible for people to steward power with justice. And boy, everybody genuflected to that through the 50s and the 60s, and every president wanted to say, a presidential candidate, well, I studied Reinhold Niebuhr. Well, if the next one tells you studied Reinhold Niebuhr, flunk that son of a bitch. Don't vote for him, because, see, that is a commitment that it cannot be done. There is a commitment, an ideological commitment, that we cannot create a viable community on earth. Now, it's not just Reinhold Niebuhr. The world of intellectual leaders is dominated by people who really do not have any hope. And I think our task, and it is a subversive task right now. You're absolutely right about this. It is subversive because you have to gather, like every group, creating a new vision has gathered, and you have to tend that flame carefully in the early days. But our job is to get past that nihilism and set our sights on an inclusive, Blake said it, universal brotherhood of Eden. And I want you to get to where you can shamelessly invest in that. Shamelessly. Any fucker wants to shame you about trying to have a vision of a world that is viable for children and other living things. You need to know who's talking to you. We have to be very careful to understand that people who tell you that any kind of vision of a viable human order on our earth is utopian and into dominance and hegemony and all that stuff, which is the latest rap in the academic circles. You just have to understand that these people do not realize that we are the animal which must have this vision, and we are the animal which must commit to it if we are mature. The difference between an uninitiated human in tribal cultures and an initiated one is the uninitiated ones had not been introduced to the vision, and they had not been asked to sign on. So the first thing I want to say is that we got to be very, very clear about our task of developing a vision together. And, you know, one of the things that is wonderful to me about the kind of work that you're doing here together and that we do around the country and increasingly internationally is that what I was always told by my professors would never and could never happen is happening among men. In our own fitful, struggling ways, we are trying to claim our species identification. Cross-race, cross-culture, cross-class. And I'm seeing men struggle with that, the reality of that, the awesomeness of that, the shadow work that has to be done around that. But I see men doing it in ways that all these people were convinced could never be. I was always told, no, people of different spiritual traditions can't cooperate. You know, people of different classes cannot cooperate. That's dogma. And what we're seeing in this work is movement beyond those kinds of assumptions. It is fitful, it's difficult, it's extremely painful, but it is happening. I see it everywhere I go. So there has to be something that is open for people's participation. So we're talking about a vision and a community, an inclusive community that must be open to everyone. And there's a male piece of that and a female piece of that. I think that it's premature and romantic to talk about gender reconciliation. And I think it's a little premature to talk about tribal reconciliation. I'm not talking about reconciliation. I'm not in that peace thing yet. I'm talking about cooperation. Alfred Adler said, if you keep your mind on the task, you can cooperate. You don't have to be reconciled to cooperate. And so what we're talking about is getting clear some visioning about what kind of thing we want to build together with the men of the world and women of the world. And opening it up, making it clear that this is the royal household to which all are invited. That was central and primal in the Christian myth. It got turned into an exclusive tribe. So there is the kind of larger task we have in terms of healing. And so I want to make it really part of my emphasis that this can't just be inner work. But we've got to be clear that there is a deep connection between the inner work and the outer work, and it's connected to a vision. And we've got to be clear about that, because if we're not clear about our vision, we don't know what we're putting our commitment toward. And then if we don't know what it is that we're opening up, it's awfully hard to invite people to participate. What we're really talking about is a uniting of the tribes under a vision of justice. If you want to do an esoteric reading of the Hebrew Scriptures, you can see it all right there. The task of David. In fact, if you talk to Jewish mystics, when they read about what David's task was, bringing the tribes together, right? Uniting North and South. See, there's the prototype of the challenge. Problem with David is he didn't get that temple stuff quite clear. And it was left to Solomon to get the temple stuff clear. But there was a split there between David and Solomon. Solomon forgot all the warrior stuff that David had. So these Hebrew mystics, looking at the scriptures there, I'm amazed at how much of this vision of the task of uniting the tribes, creating shalom, does not do away with the tribes. Let's not get into a post-tribal fantasy in that sense. We all must love and steward our tribe. A lot of difference between, being fuzzy and all romantic about it. We have to honor and respect. And so it's an honoring and respecting of the tribes, encouraging them to bring their part to this larger vision of an inclusive community. Now, the people that will tell you that that's not possible are nihilist. They can't help it. But that nihilistic vision is a result of modern nihilistic deconstructionist tendencies which destroy all meaning. It does not participate in the human mythological animal world. So we have to sign on. I think what we have in this work together is a vanguard of that possible humanity. And it's not a theory. You're not a theory. You're not just some idea some scholar had. And so it's the beginning of this community. Maldoma's right. You've got to tend this flame, very fragile flame. Lots of hate coming at it. But that is what I think our task is.